The show, this video is called Our Dad's Garage. He's my dad. Yeah! Also my tooth squiggly. Ha!
Okay, so before I started to modify the Crossmember, I supported the rear of the engine under the bell housing. The transmission was in place as well as the adapter plate that mates the 235 engine to the T5 transmission. I also supported the transmission at the exact height that I wanted it relative to the frame. This allowed me to move the Crossmember in and out of position freely so that I could mark the areas where it touched the transmission. I used a 4-inch grinder with a cutting wheel to remove the conflicting areas of the Crossmember until it would freely slide back into the factory position.
Okay folks, so here is the T5 transmission that has been mated now to the 235 engine. That is just held in there with a vise. I'm just holding it in place so I can kind of mock it up and remove it as I need to. And what I wanted to do was to modify the original Crossmember, which is this section here. The Crossmember that they sell online is, well, at any price, it's too much money. What I did was made some marks. I kept scooting it in. I put it in place as far as it would go. Now your T5 transmission is going to have this support, kind of a flange on the back of it that's going to have to groove in. Or fit into a groove. And what I did was I just kept marking it up and cutting off a little at a time until I've got it where now, as you can see, the holes line up, the transmission's not touching anything, and it's sitting just exactly where I want it. Now I've weakened that Crossmember quite a bit. I'm not sure that it's weak enough to worry about it, but I am going to beef it back up. But just to show you kind of what it does, I'm just going to grab it and pull it out, but it just will slide straight out. And that's the Crossmember there. I'm going to lay it here on top of the frame so we can kind of look at the cuts. So that's the cuts that you'll have to make in order to use your original Crossmember. You'll have to come in here, cut this whole back flange off. You'll come in at the same angle that T5 tapers at back there. This, the T5 has a weird little kind of offset flange here for support to help to hold this, I guess, just to hold this yoke up. And that's got to be notched in. And so you'll have to come in here and notch that in, and then your notch will have to extend all the way down into this. So what you've done is you've taken a piece of box steel and you've basically changed it into a piece of heavy angle iron, and that's just not going to be enough. So the other thing that I wanted to show you was that the factory transmission mount for the T5 is going to sit, these where the mounts are go onto the T5. It will sit under here. And that piece of box steel that I'm going to weld in as it comes under there will become my transmission mount. So I'll make sure, or will become the support for the transmission mount. So the transmission will actually sit back here on this piece of boxed in steel, and I will extend that on both sides, drop it down here. It'll butt up to this. It'll be heavy weld. It will never move, and it will actually put the strength back into this Crossmember. And I'll do some kind of a 45-degree angle on the edges to make it look a little bit. I told Chris when we were talking about what I was going to mock up, I said it will be ugly, functional, and cheap. That's probably the story of my life. Anyway, that's what we're going to do. I did want to show you that. I'll take some pictures of this and I'll post them below, so in case anybody ever wants to recreate this, you can see what this Crossmember is going to have to look like. And that's the cuts that you're going to have to make to get that T5 to set inside there. It's kind of boogered up and kind of ugly, but that will absolutely work, and that will save me another $350 on this build probably. All right guys, so I think it's time to kind of catch you up on what I did. I went down to the steel place and I bought a 36-inch piece of pretty heavy gauge 2-inch tube steel, square tube steel. And what I've done is I've cut 45 off of both ends of it. I actually cut that off just for aesthetics. I just didn't want it to look like I had jammed a piece of tube steel in here. as it sits just like that underneath that flange on both sides. So now I've got a piece that's going to sit underneath that flange. What I've done, I've just put a bolt in all these places just to locate that cross member, just so it's in the right spot. I know it's in the right spot. So now my piece of tube steel has gone under here, sitting underneath that flange. And then what I did was I made marks directly below that hole, which is the mount, the left mount, or the passenger side mount of the transmission bracket or transmission mount. And then the same thing on this side, that hole there, down below that. And those marks are going to fall just outside of this piece of 2-inch steel. So I'm going to have to put a little platform on the back side here. So let's come back over here. I don't know if you guys have a jaw horse, but man, these things are awesome. Great way to hold stuff as you're working. So I took my 45s that I cut off the ends from here. Cut them off the ends here. I'm going to set those 45s here to make a platform. Okay, look at that. So I'll make a platform there, and then my transmission mount will come in here. It's going to locate somewhere pretty close to the edge of that 2-inch steel. So I'm going to actually do that. So now I've come in here with my grinder and I've boxed this out. I'm going to cut these out here. You're going to have to do that because when you drop the bolt through, you're going to have to be able to access that with a wrench, and you need that space. You don't have to come all the way down. I'm just going to cut it off right there and just kind of clean it up just to make it look good. But then you come back in here once that's open in, and you can just weld you in the inside and the outside there, top mounts, or top weld, bottom weld, just butt welded on there. That's going to be very strong, strong enough to hold. It really doesn't have a lot of torque on it because you've got the two engines. You've got engine mounts that actually take care of the torque, and that little transmission mount that's in there is really just a little center mount. All it does is just kind of sit on there. There's not a lot of torque there. It just supports the weight, and that's really all it's going to have to do. So I'm going to finish this up, and then I'll show you how I'm going to weld that then together to the cross member. It should be pretty easy. Okay, we're ready to tack this in. All I'm going to do is just tack it in place and then come back and we'll do some final welding later. But I do want to just tack it in and make sure that we get a flush fit here. Okay folks, well there's the finished product. And I have cleaned up those welds a little bit. That's what I call booger welding. Booger welding is built for strength and not for show. This is going to be tucked way up underneath the transmission. Nobody's ever going to see it. It's a good strong weld. It's welded on both sides. Yes, it's ugly. I agree. I tell you what, when you build yours and you make it beautiful, you can send pictures of it to me, and I'll just sing your praises of how awesome you did. So our bolts will probably be around right here that will go through, and you'll see that's why I had to open that back up, because back on the back side there, I've got to get a nut, a washer, a nut back on the back side there, and a wrench inside there to hold it. So you need access to that space. Anyway, that's why I need that. But we'll put that back in the car. We'll see how that looks, and that's the next shot. Okay, America. I don't know if you can really see that or not, but there's the new bar, or the transmission mount that's going in. It's now clamped to the old cross member that has been sectioned so that the T5 transmission can fit inside there. And what I did was I built this area here. These two 45-degree angles are out so that the bolt can pass through. I'll still drill the hole there. This is the factory S10 pickup truck transmission mount that will sit in here. I'll probably put a steel plate between there just to pass the weight across that, but probably just a piece of flat steel, something like that, about the same width as that piece. That'll just be drilled to match the holes. No need to actually weld that in. And then what I thought I would do is come through back here on this side and find a great place to come in here and actually pass some bolts all the way through the frame rail here and on the other side in the same place. So probably around somewhere around here. All right, folks, well, there it is. So what I did once I got it clamped into place was I went ahead and drilled holes here, put some all thread through there just to hold this in place. And then I take the whole crossmember back out again just to get a good look at it, just so you can see what we're going to do. I think I am going to go ahead and cut these off. These are for the parking brake, and they're not going to work anyway because the transmission sits between them. But that shows you how that crossmember was cut out. So I notched everything here to allow the T5 transmission to sit in place. And then I came back in and put this piece of square tube in and made platforms here for the transmission mounts to mount to here and here. So that should be pretty good. I think what I'm going to do now, since I've locked it in place, is probably come along this backside here. Let me flip it over where I can show you. Probably going to come along this backside here and clean this up and go ahead and just weld these together, because they're not ever going to be taken. You can't. I was thinking that maybe you could take the transmission out without removing this crossmember, but you can't. So I'm going to make this all a permanent piece of the crossmember. I just need to clean it up and make those welds on the underside, and then I will roll it back over, and where it will, I'll be able to get some weld in here too and make that one solid piece forever and ever, amen. And that will be my ugly but functional T5 crossmember for the 1953 Chevy 210 in Bel Air. Well, it did some more booger welding, and you can kind of see in there where that's all welded together. It's all one piece. I made this little plate here to go on top of the transmission mount, and I have dropped these little screws down inside the bolt holes just to locate the spot where I'm going to drill my hole. So I'm going to mark here with my Sharpie on both sides. Mark here and here. Let's see if you can see that right there. Sorry, right there where these little screws are dropping down. So you can see that. Welded all that in there on both sides, so it's a solid piece. Used my Job Max or Jaw Horse over there to really squeeze it together and make it nice and stiff. So this piece is all very solid and should be just as strong as it was originally. Let me pull it out and we'll see. Wait, maybe get up. Oh wait, I've got the transmission mount in the way now, so I can't pull it out. Oh well, I'm gonna mark my holes first. Well, okay, gang. It is afternoon. I got to do nothing but work on the car today, which was really sweet, and got a bunch done. Built this crossmember for the transmission. I think you can see that. Let's see if I can get that in there in that shot. You can see that. Yep. Built the crossmember, got it all welded in. I got my transmission mount in place. It's not bolted in yet, but everything's just kind of mocked up and fit. That looks great. I looked at the Heights catalog, and they have a rear leaf spring kit that I actually put on that car. Same exact kit, which would relocate these leaf springs a little bit better underneath the frame rail. They are offset to the inside. And then I got to looking at the leaf spring kit that I have. That's these guys here. They're rusty, but they're in great shape. They're really the right size spring for the back of this car for it to ride good. So I really don't have to spend the money to do that. So what I'm going to do is actually, if you'll see this offset on these guys, they are offset once they mount to the frame rail. Oops, sorry. Okay, so once it mounts to the frame rail, so all those 4 pins, which I have drilled out, and I will continue to drill that out, they offset to the inside. And what I'm going to do is flip them and use these on the opposite sides, and also they'll offset to the outside. And when they do that, they will line up with the flanges that are on the Nova 2 axle, rear axle. So that kind of kills two birds with one stone. The kit for relocating this that Heights sells, the one that I put on the other car, sells for $799, and that's crazy. So I'm going to use what I've got because it's already been paid for, and it came with the car, and I think it's kind of cool that all I had to do was switch them, and I'll use the original springs and the Nova 2 rear end. That's cool. I'm going to do some more research on that just to make sure that I'm right, that I can do that. I'm pretty sure I can. And then got the transmission mounted. It's ugly. I told everybody before, it is ugly but functional, but you will never see it. Once it's all painted black, it'll be fine. It'll all go away. And that's that. So I may put some drawings of this transmission Crossmember with this video, and that way if you decide you want to build one that's like this, I paid $16 for the piece of steel, and I probably used 2 grinding and cutting wheels, so I mean you got that expense, but I mean the factory Crossmember is still in there. I did some butchering on it, but it's going to look great. I'm really happy with the way that turned out. I'm really happy with kind of discovering that flipping these brackets is going to work, and then that will relocate my springs exactly where I want those to be. And the next update, you'll see that.